Chair will call the meeting to order right on the dot at 7 o'clock. The chair thanks you for your early attendance, and we hopefully will get to the important business at this meeting quickly. As we always do, I ask you to rise, and the chair recognizes the chair of the Board of Selectmen, Dan Trabucco, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Chair recognizes Dan Trabucco.
Can you hear me? Great, thank you. Welcome everyone to this town meeting. As you know, we have truncated the format of the meeting to get the most important issues, budget, for instance, in hand. We will have at least another town meeting, maybe several town meetings, when we can do so a little more safely and more comfortably. Since this is truncated, I just want to mention that there's some outgoing selectmen that were long-serving selectmen for the town, and I would like to mention them, Arthur Boyle and Bill Bolter, and we'll honor them more appropriately when we can have a longer meeting. And I also want to mention also a long-serving town administrator and town manager, Ed Thorne, for his services. And I'd also like to welcome here some new folks onto the Board of Selectmen. We have Becky Coletta and Tracy Marino. Welcome. Congratulations for your election. And of course, they're joined by their partners, Jessica Bradley Russian and John Brown. And then another new introduction is new town manager, William Bill Chernard. He's done a fine job so far in very trying time. And Ms. Town Moderator, thank you for allowing me to say that.
Thank you. Town meetings, the purest form of democracy and a democratic tradition in New England for centuries, have taken place continuously during wars, depressions, and, yes, pandemics. I don't think any one of us would have thought that we would be conducting an annual town meeting in the heat of the summer in late July under such trying circumstances, when every venture into a public space is a calculated risk. And I thank all of those responsible for doing their utmost to ensure that this necessary meeting is conducted in a safe manner. At this time, we normally ask for a moment of silence to pay our respects to those who have served in town government and that have passed away over the past year. I will save that moment for the next town meeting when I hope and pray more can participate. However, I will ask for a moment of silence for another purpose. For many, the words we just spoke, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, is not a reality. We actually face three crises: a pandemic, an economic recession, and systemic racism. As a community, we have much to be thankful for. We have wonderful citizens, friends, and neighbors who, as frontline workers in the healthcare and retail fields, put their health and safety on the line every day. We have EMTs and first responders who faithfully answer the alarm every day, knowing that much more is at risk than ever before. We have a police department whose officers and rank and file exercise good judgment in everything they do. But we also know we have many in our community suffering physically, emotionally, and economically. The uncertainty of the future alone for some is almost unbearable. So I ask for a moment of silence to remember those who are suffering in any way, and for those who have died in recent months, not only from the coronavirus, but also from the racial, domestic, or other forms of violence that is so much in the news and in our consciousness these days. The world is a very polarized place, and it is important that we all find and practice the patience, understanding, and compassion that we need in order to appreciate and celebrate our diversity. A moment of silence brings us to one place. It is something we can do right here and right now at this town meeting as we work together towards the common good of our community. Thank you. Chair is honored to recognize at this meeting for the first time our new state senator, newly elected, just for a few brief words, State Senator Susan Moran. Senator, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Moderator, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to address town meeting members, select board members, members of Pembroke town boards, town employees, and guests. I'm here with my Director of Constituent Services, Monica Mullen, whom I believe most of you know from her service to the community with Senator DiMacedo. I'm here to make two short points. The first is to congratulate and thank you for all your governance and your service to Pembroke during these most challenging of times. I've been to every town meeting in the district so far, and this level of meeting organization, including the well-presented warrant, is impressive. It takes working together for a town to be successful within its means, and I can see you know that. I want to mention how thrilled I am to have worked with Representative Cutler in obtaining $100,000 in COVID funding bill technology improvements to facilitate remote learning in Pembroke Public Schools. Kudos to Selectwoman Becky Coletta for her advocacy and working with my office, recognizing the fundamental importance and challenge of talented teachers adapting education in COVID. No small feat. The second point is to announce hot off the press great news from the State House today that will provide a level of predictability for town budgets. Most towns in my district have been concerned and have asked whether there may be a shortfall from the state's unrestricted aid to communities. In answer to that question, today you'll be relieved to hear that the Senate and House committees on Ways and Means have agreed to a 3-month interim budget that will provide near-term fiscal stability for our Commonwealth by level funding aid to communities. The near future will remain an unprecedented challenge, given that Massachusetts has still not finished climbing the curve of the COVID pandemic. But between now and October 31st, Senate Ways and Means will be working on a final fiscal year 2021 framework, obtaining needed information for further clarity to finalize a full-year budget that's fiscally responsible and responsive to the needs of our state around potential federal action, our economic recovery, and the trajectory of COVID-19. The Senate will continue to be in session over the next 3 days on the economic recovery bill. I'm available to you to help on Pembroke initiatives going forward. You can reach me at my offices in Plymouth, Falmouth, and at the State House. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak, and best of success in your meeting going forward and as they continue. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate your coming. The chair will not go into great detail explaining the rules because, quite frankly, they're not much different from the rules of a regular town meeting, with really two exceptions. First of all, if you wish to speak, you have to go to either one of 3 microphones. There is one here, there, and in the back. And we ask you to come forward. If there's someone blocking you, you're going to have to ask them to move and speak at the microphones. If you wish to be acknowledged, if you wish to second a motion, if you wish to raise a point of order, there cannot be any, for obvious reasons, I think everyone knows now, there can't be any shouting out. So I will ask you to raise your hand if you want to second a motion, if you want to be recognized, point of order, whatever it may be, just raise your hand and then you'll have to come to the microphone and speak. And I've enlisted the clerks to help me because between the glare and my glasses, I may miss a few hands. So I ask you to do that. I'm not sure whether we've had to use the cafeteria. The cafeteria was designated for those who couldn't wear masks and for those who may want to sit separately. And we do have a deputy moderator, assistant moderator, Steve Curley, who's been sworn in to help the chair to keep track of what's going on in that meeting, count votes, signal to me when someone wants to be recognized. I'm not sure whether we've actually had to use that, but that is an option if we've had to. I'll talk about the consent agenda when we get to that. Routine motion that we always have to do. There are several articles that need 2/3. And as traditional the chair always asks for permission from the body to allow the chair to declare a 2/3. Otherwise, we might have to do a roll call for all those. So Mr. Trabucco moves that if a 2/3 vote is required by statute, the moderator is authorized to declare a 2/3 vote if, after a show of hands, the moderator determines that the 2/3 majority has been reached. Provided, however, that if a vote so declared is immediately questioned by 7 or more voters, the moderator shall verify the 2/3 majority by ordering a standing count of the yeas and nays. Is there a second? And quite frankly, this just gives you the ability to question me if you don't believe that my judgment, the chair's judgment on declaring a 2/3 is correct. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. All those opposed, please raise your hands. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. The chair will also note that the town's bylaws actually require a show of hands in every instance. So sometimes we kind of skirt that a little bit and we do a yay and nay, but we're actually abiding 100% by the town bylaws by doing a show of hands. And just one other point, we are obviously encourage debate, amendment, questions. That's the whole purpose of the meeting. If we're perceived of rushing anything through, then that really, quite frankly, makes the meeting a sham, and we don't want that to be the case. However, I am going to ask you, for the sake of everyone here, that we will try to be right to the point, not repeat items, and try to be as brief as possible. With that having said, our bylaw requires us to take the budget as the first item of business, which is Article 3 and Appendix A in your warrant. And for purposes of the main motion, the chair recognizes the chairman of advisory, Linda Peterson. And by the way, we've changed where people sit for obvious reasons, and all of advisory committee and the Board of Selectmen and other town officials are sitting up front. They may not be at tables at the front, obviously, but they are sitting up front. And to my left is Town Council Carolyn Murray from KP Law. Chair recognizes Linda Peterson.
Moderator. Mr. Is it on? Oh, okay. Move that the town appropriate the sum of $64,022,153 to fund the operating expenses of the town for the fiscal year 2021, as listed under Appendix D of the 2020 Annual Town Meeting Warrant, column headed 2021 Town Manager, and to fund this appropriation, raise an appropriation from taxation the sum of $62,289,414 and transfer the following sum: free cash, $450,000; ambulance fund, $795,162; septic betterment program, $93,360; cemetery funds, $26,532; recreation revolving, $11,000; council on aging transportation fund, $105,000; school construction surplus, $73,660; school athletic funds, $87,875; recreation revolving, $45,184; wetlands protection fund, $10,000; regional ACO reimbursement, $34,960.
So having made the motion, having made the motion, we will, as we always do, take each department. The chair also wants to explain that the chair isn't texting, anyone, a friend or something. The deputy moderator, assistant moderator, Steve Curley, and I can only communicate by texting. So that's why you may see the chair texting in the middle of a debate. So we will take each department individually. If there are any questions, again, please don't shout out, just raise your hand and we'll try to recognize you. And I'll ask if there are any questions first. First item of business, first line item is moderator wages and salaries. Are there any questions? Seeing none. And if there's someone who does have a question and we've passed it, we'll certainly go back. For the sum of $100, you just have to go to the microphone. This is a good test. Thank you. Chair, you're going to have to help me out more than usual. Just state, again, if you could state, everyone who's speaking, just state your name and street.
Matthew McNeely, High Street East. I just want to make sure that are we going under the town manager number or the 21 request number is the number I'm expecting you to read?
The last column is the town manager number. The last column is the one that we are
Reading from.
reading.
Thank you.
Town moderator, any questions? Salaries, $100. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Board of Selectmen, wages and salaries elected, $9,000. Wages and salaries, $147,787. General expenses, $10,400. Purchase of services, $100,100. Any questions? Seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. We may need a chiropractor at the end of this session, but town manager, wages and salaries, $154,900. General expenses, $3,150. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Legal purchase of services, $110,000. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. Advisory Committee, wages and salaries, $5,000. General expenses, $545. Reserve fund, $25,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Town accountant, wages and salaries, $141,522. General expenses, $39,800. Are there any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Board of Assessors, wages and salaries elected, $5,400. Wages and salaries, $258,833. General expenses, $37,500. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Treasurer Collector, wages and salaries, $367,224. General expenses, $72,800. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Data processing, wages and salaries, $0. General expenses, $69,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Town clerk, wages and salaries elected, $88,961. Wages and salaries, $51,882. General expenses, $11,440. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Elections, wages and salaries, $48,000. General expenses, $13,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Registrations, wages and salaries, $7,600. General expenses, $8,700. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Conservation Commission, general expenses, $900. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Planning Board, wages and salaries, $0. General expenses, $2,750. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Zoning Board of Appeals, wages and salaries, $0. General expenses, $2,300. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. I declare it so voted. Town Building Maintenance, wages and salaries, $146,628. General expenses, $95,392. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Police Department, wages and salaries, $3,769,394. General expenses, $288,610. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Fire Department, wages and salaries, $3,262,095. General expenses, $143,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Department of Inspectional Services, $438,987. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Building Department, wages and salaries, 0. General expenses, $12,200. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Emergency Management, wages and salaries, $4,212. General expenses, $8,023. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hands. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Animal Control Officer, $48,084. Wages and salaries. General expenses, $9,550. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Pembroke Public Schools, $34,300,000. Are there any questions? Seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Department of Public Works, wages and salaries, $943,192. General expenses, $248,432. 0 for pavement management, snow and ice, $150,000. Are there any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Townwide utilities, $194,077. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Board of Health, general expenses, $23,800. Any questions? Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Council on Aging, wages and salaries, $164,109. General expenses, $43,342. Senior tax program, $3,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Veteran Services, wages and salaries, $74,002. General expenses, $1,900. Benefits and medical, $115,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Commission on Disabilities, general expenses, $500. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Library, wages and salaries, $579,330. General expenses, $59,800. Books, $90,000. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Lydia Drake Library, general expenses, $4,500. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Recreation Commission, wages and salaries, $110,073. General expenses, $9,720. Any questions? Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Community Center, wages and salaries, 0. General expenses, $42,636. Any question? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Herring Fisheries, general expenses, $1,600. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Town Landing, wages and salaries, $32,000. General expenses, $1,510. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Town Clock Winder, wages and salaries, $1,517. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Town Memorial Committee, general expenses, $4,000. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it. Plymouth County Cooperative, general expenses, $107. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Historical Commission, general expenses, $1,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it. Maturing debt principal, $868,079 for general expenses. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. I'm sorry, raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it. Maturing debt interest, general expenses, $225,432. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Maturing debt principal excluded general expenses, $1,485,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it. Maturing debt interest excluded general expenses, $424,751. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it. Short-term interest general expenses, $27,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it. Plymouth County Retirement general expenses, $3,699,885. All those in any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it. Unemployment compensation general expenses, $150,000. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Group health insurance general expenses, $8,691,840. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Group life insurance general expenses, $20,000. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Medicare tax general expenses, $551,250. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Property and liability insurance general expenses, $660,000. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Is that it? Okay, that's it. So on the motion by Linda Peterson, there were no amendments to the budget. Any further questions on the budget? All those in favor of the budget as with the motion by Linda Peterson, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. And so now we go to the box. And by the way, that is the main reason why we are here tonight. So we have an operating budget. As you know, our quorum is normally 150. The legislature gave boards of selectmen the authority to reduce the quorum to no less than 10%. That would have been 15. They actually reduced it to 25%, which was 38. So we did get a quorum. We got 91 voters. So again, thank you for each and one of you for attending. We had to do this tonight, and we certainly appreciate your coming. So we do the lottery system here. The next item of business will be Article 14. Is that Sandy? The chair recognizes from advisory Sandy Beaton.
Mr. Moderator, I move to take no action on Article 14.
The motion to take no action on Article 14, which is a petition article, has been made. The chair would ask, normally the chair would defer to the petitioner or petitioners who are here, if they're here, to make the main motion. I'm not aware that any of the sponsors, the petitioners for Article 15 are here. Are they? So, I'm sorry, I keep saying 15. I'm in Article 14. Thank you. So if they're not, the motion has been made by Sandy Beaton for advisory to take no action on Article 15. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The chair is in error. The article we just voted on was Article 14, not Article 15. Next article is Article 11. Now, you will see a consent agenda as part of your packet. And the town passed a bylaw several years ago that allows it to put several items that are non-controversial together on the consent agenda. And one of the items is Article 11. So the first, in order to take any item out of order, we need a 4/5. So the articles that are on the consent agenda are printed out with the exception of 2. Articles 1 and 5 will not be on the consent agenda. So Article 2, which is the wage and classification plan, sets the salaries for all the town appointed and elected officials. Article 4, which is the water enterprise budget. Article 7, which is the community preservation fund allocations, which are routine allocations that are made each year. These are not expenditures for individual projects. That's another article. Article 8, which is revolving fund limits. Article 10, which is to allow the town to enter into a transportation memorandum of understanding with public schools. Article 11, fund collective bargaining agreements with the Pembroke Police Union. And Article 12, which is a routine article to accept reports. They are all on the consent agenda. Is there any objection to taking those items as one? Would anyone like to hold any one of those items for further debate, which is your prerogative to do? I don't see anyone raising their hand. So if that's the case, then Linda Peterson from Advisory moves that the town take Articles 2, 4, 7, 8. First of all, chair is in error. We need a 4/5. So in order to take up the consent agenda, we have to take a 4/5. So all those in favor of taking up the consent agenda, please indicate by raising your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I actually declare it unanimous, which is better than the 4/5. So Linda Peterson moves. I think we're okay. We won't need a motion. Linda Peterson moves that the town take Articles 2, 4, 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12 out of order, and that they be passed by consent in accordance with the motions shown on the consent agenda distributed this evening. Is there a second? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Next item, we did Article 3. That's the budget, right? Article 9 is the next item of business. The chair recognizes Matthew Rushing from Advisory.
Move that the town appropriates the sum of $200,000 for the purpose of continuing the program of financing the following water pollution abatement facility projects: repair, replacement and/or upgrade of septic systems pursuant to agreements with the Board of Health and residential property owners, including, without limitation, all costs thereof as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the General Laws. That in order to meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Selectmen, is authorized to borrow the sum of $200,000 and issue bonds or notes therefore under General Law, Chapter 111, Section 127B, 1 and 2, and/or Chapter 29C of the General Laws, or any other enabling authority. That project and financing shall be repaid to the property owners in accordance with those agreements. But such bonds or notes shall be general obligations of the town. That the treasurer, with the approval of the Selectmen, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust established pursuant to Chapter 29C, and in connection therewith to enter into a loan agreement and/or security agreement with the trust, and otherwise contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection with respect to such loan and for any federal or state aid available for the projects or for the financing thereof. And that the Selectmen or other appropriate local body or official is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection to expend all funds available for the projects and to take any action necessary to carry out the projects. Further, any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed or pay such costs by a like amount.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this requires a 2/3. All those in favor of the motion by Matthew Rushing, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Those opposed? I see. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted, having reached the necessary 2/3 needed for passage. Next article is Article 6. Chair recognizes Steve Walsh from Advisory.
Move the town appropriate $1.8 million to pay the cost of Route 36 tie-ins, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer will, with the approval of the Selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 8, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes to the town thereof. And that while such bonds and notes shall be general obligation of the town, debt service on such bonds and notes shall be paid in the first instance from the Water Enterprise Fund revenues. Any premium received from such sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less than any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payments of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to borrow by pay such costs by a like amount.
Is there any? The chair is second. Is there any discussion? This will be the first of two motions on this article, since there are two capital items that we'll be voting on. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those, both of these require 2/3. All those in favor of the motion by Steve Walsh, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. I declare it unanimous, obviously reaching the 2/3 necessary for passage. The chair recognizes Steve Walsh.
Okay, here we go with part two. Move that the town appropriate $500,000 to pay the costs of upgrades to the water filtration plant, including the payments of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 8, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes of the town therefore, and that while such bonds and notes shall be general obligation of the town, debt service on such bonds and notes shall be paid in the first instance from Water Enterprise Fund's revenue. Any premium received under the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payments of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Mass General Law 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to borrow to pay such costs by the like amount.
Chair hears second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Once again, this requires a 2/3 vote. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Steve Walsh, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it unanimous. Article 13. Article 13 requires 4 separate motions and votes, and these are the articles that actually allocate money from the Community Preservation Fund for certain projects that were deemed necessary to fund at this meeting. Chair recognizes our health agent and also the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, Lisa Cullity.
Mr. Moderator, taking the actions up in order, Recommendation A, would move that the town appropriate the sum of $80,000 from the Community Preservation Undesignated Reserve Fund, that said funds be used by the town manager for recreational purposes for the preservation and rehabilitation of Town Landing Beach and Guardhouse by making accessibility improvements consistent with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Lisa Cullity, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Chair recognizes Lisa Cullity.
Recommendation B, Mr. Moderator, move that the town appropriate the sum of $30,000 from the Community Preservation Undesignated Reserve Fund, and that said funds be used by the town manager for recreational purposes for preservation and rehabilitation of the Matakeesit Street Playground by constructing and installing Americans with Disabilities Act accessible surfacing and new playground equipment.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing, by the way, the assistant moderator informs me we are not using the cafeteria, right? Is that correct? So just folks who are in here are the ones that will be addressing the meeting. And seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion by Lisa Cullity, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Chair recognizes Lisa Cullity.
Recommendation C, Mr. Moderator, move that the town appropriate the sum of $50,000 from the Community Preservation Undesignated Reserve Fund, and that said funds be used by the town manager for recreational and historic purposes for the preservation and restoration of Veterans Memorial Park in Phase 1, including site preparation and improvements for installation of Americans with Disability Act accessible walkways.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Chair recognizes Lisa Cullity.
Recommendation D, Mr. Moderator, move that the town appropriate the sum of $500 from the Community Preservation Undesignated Reserve Fund, and that said funds be used by the Town Memorial Committee for historic preservation purposes for the replacement of Veterans Marker at Grove and Matakeesit Street.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Lisa Cullity, please raise your hand. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. While we get the next article, the chair just wants to, there's a lot of people that should be thanked for this meeting, and I don't want to take the extra time to go through all of that, but particularly the chair wants to thank the young volunteers and workers under the direction of Town Clerk Peg Struzik, who helped us out during the elections and also helped us out here. I think probably 3 times the amount of staff we've needed than normal to conduct this meeting. So we appreciate their work and their help. Article 15 is the next item of business. And the chair recognizes Ginny Wandel, former member of the school committee.
Moderator, do you want me to move to that microphone?
You can try that one.
Okay, I just didn't want people to have to turn their heads. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Good evening. Nice to be here with those of us that are here. Article 15. Mr. Moderator, I have a question first for you. What's printed and what we've reviewed from the Wednesday meeting, our Zoom meeting, I've changed. So is it okay if I give a new motion than what's printed?
Certainly.
Okay. Forgive me. So I move that the town of Pembroke vote to appropriate the sum of $5,000 from free cash to the South Shore Community Action Council, subject to the Board of Selectmen entering into an agreement for services.
Is there a second? Chair hears second. Chair recognizes Ginny Wandel.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. South Shore Community Action Council is one of over 400 action councils created in the early 60s by President Johnson. Our Community Action Council is on Aubrey Street. I happened to come upon the services of South Shore Community Action Council when I found myself in need of services in a difficult time. The town of Pembroke has had an article requesting $5,000 each year for many, many years, and I've lived in Pembroke for 25 years. 18 months ago, I wound up coming onto the board as an advisor. So I'm here to ask the town of Pembroke for a contribution, actually for a contract into services, which are social services, for the residents of Pembroke. You may or may not have picked up a flyer that I provided out front, but if you allow me, there are $243,000 worth of services that have been given to the town of Pembroke in 2019. These funds were received by almost 700 families, individuals. You may or may not know, right here in this room, people who need these services. So, in the category of fuel assistance, transportation, reliable transportation, for maybe you need dialysis, maybe you're having cancer treatments, reliable transportation, a network for families through dedicated programs at our Pembroke Public Library, a partnership for fuel assistance that comes through our Council on Aging, our Meals on Wheels. Many, many services are provided to the town of Pembroke. The $5,000 that we're asking for is a generous, but I think small ask. $5,000 out of $243,000 worth of services provided, direct services, will go as a good gesture toward our receiving future help to everybody who needs it. The reason the language has changed is because I just found out from our town council and from Mr. Chenard that a 501c3, which is a nonprofit, cannot legally ask a town entity for a contribution. So this is not a gift to a nice charity. It needs to be a contract. So I ask tonight that your vote with my amended words, and I will pass those up to you, would be a vote of confidence to offset the $243,000 that was already given to the town of Pembroke to its residents, and that will ensure that next year and the future years we will continue from work that's been going on since the early 1960s. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Is there any further discussion? Chair recognizes Tim Landy from the Advisory Committee.
Can we hear the wording again, please?
Move that the town of Pembroke vote to appropriate the sum of $5,000 from free cash to the South Shore Community Action Council, subject to the Board of Selectmen entering into an agreement for services.
Okay. Can I
Chair
suggest a rewording?
recognizes Tim Landy.
We just came up with the new town manager, and I believe it's under him and his staff to manage all of the vendors. So even though the Board of Selectmen can recommend that we contract with the vendor, I think it's up to them to manage that relationship. So I think the wording should be enter into contract with the town of Pembroke or the town manager, not the Board of Selectmen, because it kind of creates a perception that you could go around that. So, just a suggestion.
Well, the chair would say that if you want to make a motion to amend the article, then you would have to make a motion to amend it, and we need it in writing.
Okay.
If the petitioner wants to change the article, the chair would allow that, or we can keep it as it is.
So just a question, Mr. Moderator.
Chair recognizes Ginny Wandel.
I've had good conversation with Mr. Chenard. So Bill, hate to put you on the spot. I'm not an attorney, and I didn't realize that our language previously wasn't appropriate language. So if I could ask for a little assistance, what I'm asking this town is to vote on, I can't even find the right words. It's our intention to make a contribution, but I understand that the word contribution is not the proper language. So could I just ask for some assistance in my language?
The chair would ask, just so we can try to handle this as quickly as possible, what we really need to see is the writing of the motion. So if you could bring that up. Chair recognizes Dan Trabucco from the Board of Selectmen. I don't think you're on.
I can short circuit this. I just
Well,
talked
no,
with
wait a
the-
minute. We gotta do
I would
this in
just
order.
like town council to opine on this language. That's why we have town council with us here at these meetings, for this very purpose.
The chair is very confused at this point as to what the appropriate language is. So the
Mr. Moderator?
chair recognizes Tim Landy.
Thank you. I just talked with the town manager, and he's okay with the original language, so we can just move on with that language. I'll drop my.
And apparently town council advises the same. So is there any further discussion on this item? Chair recognizes Steve Walsh from advisory.
I just have a question. If we're going to make a donation, even though it's a donation, it's going to be a contracted service. Usually contracted services run through departments, so it's a line item in their budget. So if we're going to approve this year, what's stopped from the Girl Scouts coming next year, or the Boy Scouts? They're all providing services to the town. So I'm just trying to get a point of, if it's a contracted service, what services are going to be, and what departments is it going to run through?
Well, the chair cannot compel anyone to ask. Chair recognizes Ginny Wandell.
Microphones, just to confuse everybody some more. I don't have my handy-dandy handout in front of you, maybe in front of me, some of you might. The services that are provided are in, I think, 8 different categories that you see. Sabrina, do you have that? Okay. So in terms of transportation, can you imagine the town of Pembroke contracting with Uber to make sure that a dozen of our families are receiving the car ride for Nana to go to dialysis 3 days a week? These types of services are essential. And in some ways, I don't think that we have a general central location for these sorts of necessary services. Transportation is just one category. Food, fuel. Thanks, Sabrina.
Chair recognizes Becky Coletta from the Board of Selectmen.
So before I was elected, the Board of Selectmen had voted to take no action on this article.
Thank you.
I am supporting this article. And when we talk about having somebody to route these services through, part of the point is that we do not have social services available to our residents. We have the Council on Aging that provides some of these services and coordinates with the South Shore Community Action Council to provide some of these services like Meals on Wheels. But we do not have a social services. And that's part of what this organization has been able to help our residents with, is making sure that they get some basic aid through things like fuel assistance. And that is why I think this is a contribution that I have supported in the past and I continue to support.
Chair recognizes Ginny Wandell.
So the categories, if I can just give you the broad generalization: fuel assistance, energy conservation, transportation, the family network provided through the library for STEM and other early reading, income tax assistance, food resources, including bagged groceries, delivery to homes of families who happen to be in a low-income category right now. In addition to our elder service, we have South Shore Early Childhood Education Intervention, and there's an intervention an offset for anybody who needs other legal advice or consumer assistance. It's a hot. So those are the broad categories.
Chair recognizes former Selectman Bob DiMarzo.
Mr. Moderator, through you, I'm not clear on the total funding of this article. Are we saying that the town is only limited to $5,000 in expenditures? Or are we saying we're contracting with them and any of these services that are provided to our people, we will be billed for and responsible for? Or are we spending $5,000 and getting $250,000 from somebody else and it's a good deal for us? And I'm not clear on that. And then we also, is then South Shore Community Action the exclusive agent to provide these services versus some other organization?
Chair recognizes Dan Trabucco.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So the town already receives these services, whether we give them a $5,000 donation or not. So just being clear on that, they are funded elsewhere. They are funded elsewhere. The town already receives all of these wonderful services, and they are wonderful services, and they do help the community. What they're asking for is a contribution. They want $5,000 from the town of Pembroke. They are already providing these services from outside funding, and they want the town of Pembroke to give them a donation. The original article that's in your warrant wanted town meeting to give them that money, but the amended motion wants the Board of Selectmen to give them that money. That's the difference. Rather than you giving it to them, town meeting is asking the Board of Selectmen to negotiate with them and give them a contract, the legal way to give them the $5,000. So your vote here tonight will be asking the Selectmen to sit down with these folks and enter a contract and give them the $5,000. That's what's before you now.
Chair recognizes Ginny Wandel.
So point of clarification, the funding that comes is not 100% covered. About 70% is covered with federal fundings. About 20% is covered with state funding. South Shore Community Action Council is charged, not just South, all of the action councils are charged to do some other funding mechanism. Every town that we're in partnership with that makes up South Shore Community Action Council, by the way, it's not just Plymouth County. It's from Hull to the Cape and Islands to Wareham to Middleborough. The funding, yes, we will be given services. I think that we're a generous town, and I think of the $243,000 that we receive, a $5,000 portion would be helpful. And I think that means that we're good neighbors. And I don't want to, belabor the point, because I think we're generous people and I think we're community minded.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, the chair will read the motion once again that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $5,000 from free cash to the South Shore Community Action Council, subject to the Board of Selectmen entering into an agreement for services. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion by Ginny Wandel, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 1 is the next item of business. We have 2 more articles left, and the chair recognizes the chairman of advisory, Linda Peterson.
Motion that the sum of $229,622 is appropriated to supplement fiscal year 2020 appropriations and to fund these supplements, that $127,122 be transferred from the capital fund to the account for DPW general expenses. $102,500 be transferred from DPW water surplus to the account for DPW water general expenses.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this does require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion by Linda Peterson, please raise your hand. All those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it unanimous. Before we go to the very last article, the chair just wants to very briefly thank the folks at the Pembroke Emergency Management Agency. I can't tell the amount of time that's been put into this meeting. It may look like it was simply done. We have collectively put in more time in planning for this town meeting than certainly any that the chair has chaired in the last 11 years. And I thank you for that. It's turned out well. Thank you for coming out. We needed to get this done. Also, the chair would be remiss. For 50 years, 50, missing very few, usually out front in the lobby selling donuts and coffee, but can't do it. Just several weeks out of the hospital after being hospitalized for several months, Carol Dodge is here in her seat, and the chair recognizes her. And I'm sure it is killing her that she can't speak, but she's here. Article 5 is the next and last item of business. Chair recognizes Kelly Seifert from Advisory Committee.
Mr. Moderator, move that the town appropriate the sum of $2,025,573 from solid waste revenue and the sum of $100,000 from solid waste surplus to fund the fiscal year 2021 solid waste enterprise fund as shown in Appendix D of the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Any discussion on this motion? Which
Mr. Moderator.
Chair recognizes Matthew Newman.
Matthew McNeely from High Street.
McNeely, I'm sorry, not Newman.
My concern, I'm sure like several others here, my trash bill went up this year. And I'd certainly like to know, seeing that this is the solid waste budget, this would be the time to ask the question of why it went up. If in fact we're entered into a longer term agreement, if in fact we can anticipate the cost to continue to increase, I'd like to hear more about the solid waste if I could, please.
Chair recognizes Town Manager Bill Chenard.
Can everybody hear me through this? Perfect. So, the answer was no. Can everybody hear me now?
Perfect.
All right, way to go. So, solid waste has been something that I've dug into in my previous job with the town of Natick, and I'm digging into here with the town of Pembroke. The main reason that solid waste went up this year was the cost for tipping. Many of you may be aware of the China Sword initiative, where the Chinese government said they were no longer going to take recyclable materials from the United States. Their claim was that the contamination rates were just too high and they were no longer going to deal with it. That's the main reason. Our direct cost to tip trash and recycling increased. That's what's driving this factor, the trash rates to go up substantially this year. However, there are ways that we as a community can mitigate that. Our contamination rate in our recycling is 25.9%. That is astronomical. A scary, scary number. That's an audited number through our recycling initiative with our contract. The average across the U.S. is 13 to 17%. The average of many communities in New England is 10 to 12%. That's costing us a ton of money, folks. We need to get the junk out of our recycling. If we lowered that number alone, we could cut $30 on our fee. Bowling balls, urns with ashes, those things don't belong in the recycling. One of the biggest, we saw it firsthand. We went and we saw it. We've got to do that. We're starting an initiative through the town manager's office to get that information out to everyone. This is a big deal to me. It's a cost that we're just throwing away money, literally. One of the biggest issues is people who put their recyclables in plastic bags, big trash bags, and then take that trash bag and put it in a recycling. The recyclable separation machines can't handle that. It takes that bag and it spins it up as a rope in the mechanicals, and it causes them to shut down their operations to clear that out. So I urge everyone, don't put food products in your recycling. Don't put bowling balls or urns. I don't understand that one, but, or plastic bags in your recycling bins. I hope I answered the question.
Any further discussion on this item?
So if
The
I may,
chair
Mr. Moderator, through
recognizes
you,
Matthew McNeely.
I would, so the increase in this cost, is this contractual that we're under agreement for this number for the next 3 years, or is just 1 year, and if we do bring our recycling numbers down, it gets renegotiated?
So
Chair recognizes Bill Chenard.
Sorry about that. I'm rushing here. So the answer is we have we had the option to go with a 5-year contract. We had to renew. I started the job and had to renew it very, very quickly. So we exercised a renewal clause in our previous contract. We're going to have another audit this fall. I've asked for another audit as soon as we can possibly get it done. Let's work hard. That's why we're going to do this education campaign. Let's work hard. Let's talk to your friends and neighbors. Get that information out there so that we can reduce this cost. It's possible that we could even see a rate reduction during this fiscal.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Kelly Seifert on Article 5, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Before we move to adjourn, the chair would just ask that you remain in place, and the police will, or ushers or poll workers will just escort you out or show you how to go out just to keep the separation. Chair also wants to thank very much PACTV, who has been done a tremendous job for not only our town but other towns in setting up, helping with the logistics, the microphones, the cameras, the broadcasts. We could not have done it without them, and the chair appreciates very much their work. Selectman Dan Trabucco moves that the meeting stand adjourned without time or place certain. Is there a second? Chair is second. All those in favor, please raise your hands for the last time. All those opposed, the ayes have it. I declare it so voted, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.